Shutout in Seattle Part 1 is the 23rd episode of the 6th season of Frasier. This is directed by Pamela Fryman, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's a pretty decent episode. It starts off in Cafe Nervosa at 9:30 on a Saturday. Roz and Niles are there. Roz had a date, but it got cancelled, so she went to the zoo. And that's so she didn't go home and feel humiliated in front of the babysitter. And Niles reveals that Daphne and Donny got engaged yesterday, which was the previous episode. Noel then comes in, and Noel's great, really brings up the comedy there. And then we cut to the following morning. Niles is over at Frasier's, and he's having lunch with Maris later on. And then Faye appears. Faye is there. She spent the night with Frasier. Martin is there with Bonnie. And it's just love everywhere, which really torments Niles. And then Daphne and Donny are there, and Donny makes this their engagement breakfast. Frasier keeps calling Faye Cassandra, which is a little bit awkward, and it's a very chaotic scene. There's a lot happening, and it's really easy to feel Niles' growing anxiety at the situation, not because it's chaotic necessarily, but because there are a lot of couples. And Martin even comments at one point that even dogs deserve love. And of course, that just makes things worse for Niles, and he's just not in a great headspace. It's a pretty interesting scene. We're then at KSEL, and Roz happens to mention that something happened because she was lonely. And there are two times when this happens in the episode when it seems like it's hinting at something, but it's not. And I could remember what happened. I've seen this before, but I think it's fair to say that it seemed like in that moment, Roz was about to say she slept with Niles. But she didn't. She slept with Bulldog. Bulldog comes in. He's great. Absolutely fantastic. But it did seem like in that moment, she was going to say she slept with Niles. Certainly, since that's how the first scene began. And we'll come back to this concept in a little bit. We're then back at Frasier's apartment. Daphne is wearing one rubber glove because she lost her engagement ring. Donny is lounging on the sofa with, I think, Chinese takeout cartons on the sofa, which would irritate me so much. If that was my sofa and somebody was putting their takeout cartons on there, I'd get so annoyed. I really would. And Frasier comes in. He's obviously not happy about the situation, but he doesn't say anything. And then Daphne confesses to him that she's lost her engagement ring. And she ends up having a chicken on her hand at one point because she doesn't want to tell Donny. And they then leave, and Frasier is trying to call Niles, and the phone rings, the cell phone rings in the living room. Niles had left his phone, and Martin answers the phone, not realising Frasier is in the kitchen, and Frasier is asking to speak to Niles. Martin goes to look for him in the apartment. It's it's good fun. It works well. And Frasier's face when he realises he's on the phone to Martin is brilliant, and Martin's response, I thought, was great. And then, a little while later, Martin gets a phone call. Actually, before we get there, I think something that's particularly interesting is that at the beginning, or earlier on, we had all of these displays of love while Niles was on his own. But that's falling apart. As we saw, Frasier was calling Faye Cassandra. Daphne has lost her engagement ring, the symbol of her relationship, and Martin went to the park with Bonnie. They were going to connect Eddie with Bonnie's poodle, and that went really badly as well. Apparently the poodle just sat on Eddie, and Eddie just took it. And we have this example of all of these relationships not being perfect, or issues within those relationships. And I think it helps to show that actually in that breakfast scene, everything looked perfect and Niles was alone. But we see here that things are cracking a little bit. And I think that's quite important. And then the phone rings again. Niles' phone rings. Frasier answers it. And it's a jeweler. It's Maris's favourite jeweler. The diamond earrings Niles ordered are ready to be collected. And of course, Frasier assumes that in his moment of weakness, feeling alone, Niles must have got back with Maris, which nobody wants. Nobody wants that. I don't think even Niles wants that. But that's what we're currently believing. So Martin and Frasier go to Niles' to basically tell him this is not a good idea, don't do it, and also here's your cell phone. And they go over, and Niles is entertaining. And my first thought, again, I've seen this before, but my first thought there is that it's not really indicating that it's Maris, but it could be indicating that it's Roz because of the previous scene, or the earlier scene. And it turns out it's not Roz. even though Niles said he's there with somebody they met at Cafe Nervosa and kind of hit it off from there, it's actually Kit, played by Jessica Cauffiel. And again, I feel like for the second time, there's this suggestion that Roz and Niles were together. But after a minute or two, we realise that's not the case. And this is how we end part 1. The ending of this episode itself is very, very flat. It's not really a cliffhanger-y ending, to be honest. But it is a 2-parter, so we can't exactly say it's a disappointing ending to the narrative because it continues. But yeah, the ending of this episode did just kind of fall off a little bit. It wasn't the most interesting ending, but the episode as a whole, I did quite like. I guess there's a bit of a cliffhanger with, will Daphne find her engagement ring? And if not, will she tell Donny? We'll find out in due course. But other than that, it's not the strongest ending. But I guess it's technically not the end of the story. And that being said, I enjoyed it. I thought Shutout in Seattle Part 1 is still a decent episode. We are very nearly at the end of Season 6, which is devastating. But we still have 4 more seasons to go, which is good. And for now, I can confirm that Shutout in Season 2, Part 1 is enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to watching Part 2 again.